world sport. Two freedom-loving lads, including one who's, well, had quite the eventful year in particular, is none other than Senator James Paterson, Liberal from Victoria, and he joins us now from Melbourne. Congratulations on standing up for common sense this year, mate. I tell you what, you've always been high in my books, but you've grown in stature with what you've done this year. Congratulations on not hiding behind the ghost, not hiding in the shadows and taking them on.
Thank you, Paul. That's very kind, mate. But I have to say, please, no more quizzes. I saw how badly it went for my good friend and colleague Amanda Stoker in the previous hour, and I fear that I would be even worse than her. So well, no more quizzes, please. Well,
you can plead all you like, pal, but I'm going to be like China here, where you can say whatever you want. I'm making the decision, and we're going to be doing a quiz for the decade in a few minutes' time. So if she got 0 for the year, how do you reckon you'll go for the decade?
You're the dictator of this hour of television, aren't you, Paul?
President for life, my friend. President for life of Paul Murray Live and Sky News. That may come back to haunt me one day. Anyway, Jim, the Labor Party in New South Wales. How are you, mate?
Yeah, great. Good to see you.
You're looking forward to that quiz?
Oh, well, look, I am a little bit worried, but we'll give it a go. I said I want to buy a vowel and we'll see how we go.
Yeah,
that's not good. No, not good for a former school teacher. I expect to go better than
this. Is what always. This is the thing. You're all good at marking the tests. What about actually doing them?
Just don't give me a spelling test.
Anyway, some news between now and then. Steve Dixon was, of course, a member of the LNP government under Campbell Newman. He left the LNP. He became the leader of One Nation in Queensland. He was working in Pauline Hanson's office and he was standing to be senator at the upcoming election. Now, I said this at the time, that the fit-up job that was done on One Nation by Al Jazeera was a disgrace. But even more of a disgrace was the fact that the footage that was all owned by Al Jazeera, in the possession of Al Jazeera, magically somehow was able to leap out of the servers in the Middle East and make it to a current affair. This is the strip joint stuff. Now, I'm not justifying the strip joint stuff, but the timing about just how calculated the hit job was is in part what matters here, because they deliberately waited until after it was impossible to replace Steve Dixon on the ballot paper. That was part of the hit. But Steve Dixon and his wife have appeared on a YouTube channel to try to explain what the impact is like when you are in the middle of one of these national events where everyone is pointing at you, and it's worth a look.
I had to watch Steve 24/7, and I'm just being honest. Steve would virtually lay on the bed in the fetal position. I would follow him to the bathroom, to the shower. Had I have not been here, especially during the time when the media were camped outside the front of the property, anything could have happened.
I felt destroyed. I felt like I'd had my life taken away from me. I couldn't sleep. I had to go to my doctor to get medication to be able to sleep, because every time I closed my eyes, I felt like I was in a nightmare. And I thought, well, if this can happen to me, it's going to happen to somebody else again in the future. And it's so easy for a foreign power, it's so easy for money and the media to be able to absolutely destroy somebody. And I think it's just bloody woeful. And I tell you what, I think it almost drove me to the point of suicide. Yeah.
Now, we're going to continue with this in a second, but guys, I want to get to the breaking news that everyone can see at the bottom of their screen. New Zealand Police have just released this statement that police and a helicopter rescue has flown over the area that's been affected by this volcano. And the direct statement here is, no signs of life have been seen at any point. Police believe that anyone could have been taken from the island alive, was rescued at the time of evacuation. Based on the information we have, we do not believe there are any survivors on the island. Police are working urgently to confirm the exact number of those who died, further to the 5 deceased already. As part of the recovery, the New Zealand Defence Force ship will approach the perimeter of the island at first light to deploy drones and observational equipment to further assess the environment. Police continue to receive information and advice from GeoNet experts about the recovery. But again, just repeating here that they have previously said that up to 5 people had died, but now it is believed that those that are missing are now at this point moving towards presumed dead, because there is no sign of any life at any point in and around that volcano. We'll take a break and we'll return with Paul Murray Live in a moment, including we'll pick up what Steve Dixon just had to say, but it would be Very poor taste of us to try to move on to any other subject after that breaking news from New Zealand. Heartbreaking, and strength and love to all the families involved. And remember, things are apparently so volatile there that the authorities are not actually able to get anywhere near the island, hence why they'll get as close as they can in a ship, and then drones will be doing the work, and you'll see that from the very early hours of the morning, and you'll see that with Peter Stefanovic in First Edition tomorrow.
From a nation divided to a leader defeated and another decided.
We have a deal. It's a good deal.
Now, the Brexit election is almost here. Join Kieran Gilbert for exclusive rolling coverage of the contest and Laura James live on the ground in London.
Do we have democracy in this country or not?
The Brexit election. All the results on Sky News Australia.
Dad, where do babies come from?
Well, it all starts with the copulatory process, mate. This leads into full fertilization, the uterine wall, embryo, then into a fetus, slides down the birth canal, and that's where babies come from. Any questions?
Handle any situation in an Everest sport.
Hey, we're Human Nature, and this is our 30 Years of Hits collection, including Every Time You Cry,
Telling Everybody.
He Don't Love You,
And a reimagined version of Don't Say Goodbye.
Relive the magic with us today.
Experience Australia's only dedicated Ultra HD movie channel.
All right, it's showtime.
The old ways serve us no longer.
Foxtel Movies Ultra HD, where TV comes to life.
Oh, home sweet home. Now to watch some TV.
It begins.
Celebrate the big trio with 30 years of 21 days of Margin Mo, so strap yourself in and go. Foxtel's 21-day 30th anniversary mega marathon. Foxtel celebrates 30 years of The Simpsons. Starts next Monday, 6 a.m. on Fox 8.
UK TV invites you front row for the world's best variety show. In the presence of royalty and superstars, join Rob Beckett and Ramesh Ranganathan for performances by Robbie Williams, Harry Connick Jr., Cirque du Soleil, and so much more. Get ready to celebrate the Royal Variety Performance 2019. Thursday, 8:30, new to UK TV.
Andrew, great to see you. Welcome aboard.
News you can trust.
And there are properties around here badly affected by those fast-moving fires.
Opinions you can't ignore.
You're watching, Scott? Not a cent so far to a farmer.
On Sky News Australia. Now, back live with Paul Murray.
Thank you for watching. We'll go to the UK in a second. The news remains the same from New Zealand, that it is a situation that is getting even worse here with no signs of life that have been detected. We won't hear any more from the New Zealand authorities for the next couple of hours. In the meantime, we continue the discussion as planned with Senator James Paterson, Liberal Victoria, and from the Labor Party in the New South Wales Parliament is Jihad Dib. So we heard from Steve Dixon, a figure who wanted to get into the Senate based on For One Nation. But Senator Paterson, I wanted to ask you about this here, where I'm just always interested, regardless of whether people did the really wrong thing, perceived to do the wrong thing, fitted up doing the wrong thing, completely innocent, right? Take your pick on where you think either this case or others sit. Yep. But I thought that you could see by his body language, his physicality and what he was talking about the immense toll that happens when, for whatever reason, for 48 hours, everyone's pointing at you. And it is amazing about how few times the media goes back to have a look at the roadkill along the way.
Paul, I'm not a typical One Nation defender. I think they're very good at raising grievances and pretty poor at proposing solutions, but I have to say I'm pretty sympathetic to Steve Dixon here. he was held to an impossibly high moral standard that, frankly, I think a lot of people in the political class would struggle to meet. And if the public has an expectation and if the media intends to prosecute that in politics all human beings will be perfect human beings with unimpeachable personal lives, then I think we're in for a very rough time indeed. When you're at the middle of a media spotlight like that, as Steve was, it's a pretty awful thing. And as you say, the caravan moves on very quickly and leaves a bit of wreckage behind.
Well, and also the difficulty with either cancel culture or outrage culture or even just, you know, national spotlight that is negative jihad is it's very hard to build a life after that. Now, capable people who didn't commit crimes, right? We're just talking about just judgment calls of pub tests and all of that other stuff that gets said, right? So I'm not at all going to be finding excuses for, you know, people who've been in and out of prison or in and out of courtrooms. But it is incredibly difficult. What do you go on and do? Oh, well, you become an auctioneer and then some smart aleck takes a photo and that's in the paper a few months later. You know, OK, if public life has ended, life hasn't ended, but you can understand how people feel that the walls have closed in completely on them.
Yeah, I mean, and you saw that really clearly with the video as well. Not only does it impact him, it impacts his wife. Is it, you know, I thought the real telling line was that she had to keep an eye on him 24 hours a day. And I think, you know, as James said, the caravan moves on, and part of the culture that we've got as well is the pile on and absolutely blowtorch and then just move on to the next thing. Now, I mean, what he did is he's paid a very heavy consequence for it. This is a bloke who, you know, all things being equal, was going to be a senator within a couple of weeks. And, you know, the mental health thing, I think we don't talk often enough about. You know, everyone gets their line, everyone wants to take that snappy shot, someone wants to take a photo of him taking out the garbage afterwards to show that he's a broken person. He's a broken person. And no matter what job he's going to take now, there is going to be a follow-up article, 5 years, 10 years' time says, this is the man that could have been. Now, he's admitted to the mistake he's made. He's paid a heavy consequence of it. But we've also, you know, I want to say we, like the whole of society, need to take some sort of responsibility that it's not in anyone's interests to then not only, you know, they've done the hit job, but then after that, they've absolutely buried him into the ground. Who's going to be the person, if that person, you know, if he, for example, did hurt himself or you know, God forbid, went the next step and suicided, who's going to step up and say, well, hang on a second, we need to have a look at this. We need to be incredibly careful because that spotlight and that intense pressure, it's happened to him, but it happens a lot to politicians who find themselves in trouble. You know, they for whatever it is that they do, the blowtorch hits and then they walk away, but the carnage that's left behind is their family, their associates, their friends. It doesn't just damage that person.
But also it's this thing too, James, where I think it's also sort of worth noting, and look, I wish Steve and his wife nothing but the best. He was always very kind to me when he was involved in politics, and I know that this is a very important thing for him to be able to start to tell his story, and I'll make sure that you can see the video, go and have a look. But I just don't think, and look, I know that during an election campaign there's a lot of noise and a lot of other things to pay attention to, but to me it was, I mean, I find it gross that the media union gave Al Jazeera Scoop of the Year for the hit job on One Nation. But secondly, the fact that there were so few curious people in the media who asked the question of, hang on, how did the footage get from Al Jazeera, who could have put it in the doco but didn't, but then sent it to A Current Affair magically, who either stole it or it was given to them. There's only one of two options there, and then decided to release it after the close of nominations, therefore maximum damage. That's the stuff that, again, if somebody had tried, if let's say an alt-right group had tried to do that to the Greens, we'd still be talking about it.
I completely understand why people are cynical about this, Paul. It's a situation of, oh, whoops, and it finds its way where it needs to and gets out and does the damage that it was intended to. I think the whole thing is pretty unseemly, particularly the hidden camera aspect of it. I doubt that there are many people in public life, whether they're in the media or in politics, who would come up all that well if they had a camera secretly trained on them for a number of days, and certainly if it involved them hitting the source pretty hard at the same time. I think probably a lot of people would behave in a way that they wouldn't be proud of, that might be offensive when viewed on primetime television, and that might ruin their reputations forever, and that they'll really just struggle to recover from. So I'm not sure we should be encouraging that kind of journalism, frankly.
No, I agree, let alone calling it Scoop of the Year. Come on.
We need to worry about it, as I said before. There's got to be a certain responsibility. You know, I mean, this was, whether you say, look, it's convenient, it's accidental, Certainly One Nation has made their own bid.
Sure.
At different time. But the fact of the matter is we've got a person here, and it could happen to anybody.
Correct.
Who is at a point where they were considering suicide.
Correct.
So we've got to also understand that we could put so much pressure on somebody that we actually destroy their life. And if that's the sort of game that's to be played, people don't want to play that game, because there's no use doing the damage and then walking away saying, oh, I didn't realise that was going to happen. That's exactly what could have happened.
Correct. Now, you know, we don't expect musicians, performers, entertainers to be anything but of the left. But the ease with which they will slag off Christians, here's another example of it. Tim Minchin, I think he's got a show somewhere here on Foxtel in the next little while, looks interesting. But I want you to hear what he had to say, a long-time sort of religion hater by some of the songs that he sung over the while, and I say this as an atheist. But how's this for a cheap laugh about the Prime Minister?
Scott Morrison, this government, I have no doubt that they are Philistines, that they don't have any understanding of the financial, cultural and trickle-down value of arts in this country. Honestly, the difference between a good functioning democracy and not is art. I know that sounds wanky, and I'm not one of these people like, oh, let's just give grants to everyone. I just think it is very hard to measure the impact of a well-funded arts culture. And when it's not easy to measure, people like this government just are not interested. They just... ScoMo spends a lot of time with Brian Houston and not enough time at the theatre. He just does. He just does.
Zing, James, he got you there. He might say he's not being wanky, but I'll say he is.
Paul, I thought trickle-down economics didn't work, but apparently it does work as long as it's in the arts world. If we spend money on art, somehow it trickles down to, I don't know, poor people who never get to an art gallery. I mean, frankly, some of these people are so out of touch with the taxpayers whose money they want to spend on their pet projects, and that was a pretty perfect example of that. The substantive issue he was commenting on, by the way, was that the arts function within the Department of Communications and Arts was being moved into the infrastructure department. Nothing more, nothing less, no radical changes here. You know, artists weren't being taken out the back and arrested and sent off to a gulag. The arts function moved from one department to another. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, but this is the Philistines that don't understand. I mean, look, apart from anything else, right, and that sort of smart alecky, oh, Brian Houston and Hillsong, this sort of Twitter thing. When will these people understand? 70% of Australians believe in a God, and most of them in the lead up to Christmas for Christians, but you name it for lots of other faiths, they will observe. Look, I'm an atheist. I'm not offensive or antagonistic for those who believe or don't believe. I wish I had faith. I just don't have it, right? But a fundamental understanding of our fellow Australian is the extreme majority believe in a being higher than them.
And you've got to respect that.
Yes.
I'm going to give you an example. So, you know, I'm of the Islamic faith, but I purposefully made sure that my Christmas cards this year said Merry Christmas. It wasn't Caesar's greetings, it is Christmas. In the same way that somebody might say to me, Eid Mubarak, or I might wish someone Happy Hanukkah, I think it's a respectful thing. The problem that I see, and I actually spoke about this over the weekend, is this perceived war with faith. And it's really causing lots of damage. If somebody's got a faith, you don't need to attack them. If somebody doesn't have faith, you don't need to attack them either. Everybody just be the way that they want to be, but at respect. And it goes back to what you said almost at the top of show, not about this idea of freedom to practice your religion and to say what you want to say. Say it in a way that's not going to hurt other people, but be respectful. I think, you know, if you want to attack the government on the fact that what they've done with the arts department, attack them. But don't then link the Prime Minister's faith into this, because, you know, this was a discussion that we've already had. And I think when you said 70%, and that's the case, you know, people want to believe in something. People want to believe, and if you don't believe, then that's your choice. But if people do want to believe, don't have a go at them for it. And don't say that was a decision because of that reason. That's not the reason. There's a whole heap of other reasons. Let's talk about the other reason. I'll say that as a Labor person. Attack the government on whatever reason it was, not on the faith.
But also, I mean, he wants to sort of make it out like Hillsong, some sort of new version of Opus Dei, where it's sort of chanting and thrashing yourself. There's a fair amount of musical performance, theatricality, all the rest. Anyway,
they play it.
But yeah, it's ridiculous. All right, let's go to Benjamin Laker, who's our mate in the UK, and we like to talk to him in the lead up to the election. Now, I just keep saying this every time, but I was fascinated to read in the UK papers, Benjamin, that the people who really wanted Boris Johnson Johnson, literally double-page spread. Here are the 40 seats where we need to win it for Boris, and then in the lefties, here's the 50 seats that we need to win to stop Brexit. It's brass tacks now, so what are you reading into the final play, the final pitch, and most importantly, where the leaders are?
Yeah, evening, Paul, exactly that. It's totally unprecedented and extraordinary. If you open any press, if it's on the left, it's telling you how to vote tactically and keep the Tories out. And of course, then publications on the right, such as the Daily Mail, they're explaining this is how to vote tactically to get Boris in and Brexit done. And it's very interesting that they are coupling those two items together. Apropos, the only way to get Brexit done is to vote Boris in. But that being said, there is so much turmoil at the moment. Apparently 70% of people do not yet know what cross they will put on the ballot paper come Thursday. So polling data at the moment is very misleading, and you can't really call this.
My sense all the way is that this is a whole lot tighter than anyone can seem because of the margins, where again it doesn't matter if the Tories are 10 points ahead or Labor's 10 points behind, because in the seats that you win, all you need to do is win by one vote. You don't need to run up a 10,000 vote victory here or there. Therefore, the very strong Tory bits, the very strong Labor bits are distorting everything else. Has there been much polling in the seats that matter? Because there's a lot of that YouGov polling that's national, but of all the press I read, very few people have bothered to actually go down to the 40 seats that matter.
Yeah, and there's really some discussion about which are the truly marginal seats. And of course, add into this, you have some truly unprecedented comments from the likes of, say, Sir John Major, who was an ex-Conservative Prime Minister, who has publicly come out and said, do not vote for the Conservative Party. Absolutely unheard of. And of course, when you have that type of messaging to the very strong constituencies, for example, who would have voted Conservative for a very long time, when you have an ex-leader telling you, do not vote for this party, vote for someone else, there is so much noise, so much conflicting information that actually, if they even were to poll those local strongholds, I don't really think they would get the answer they would look to see.
Now, my guess is that if everyone's going to play, there's only 40,000 votes in it in a country of however many million people, I think when push comes to shove, it's actually going to be the last-minute break for the Conservatives. I think that if they go back and if they win, I think that this is really close, including the lefties who want to make it seem close to encourage people to tactically vote. The problem is, if you want to change the government, you want to change the nature of the country. Therefore, those people, there's a lot of big changes. It's not like we're arguing between standard definition and high definition television here. It's a fork in the road, and I'm not entirely sure that people, if they haven't already made that jump, aren't going to make it on between now and polling day. They're more likely to say, better the devil we know.
Yeah, and I think that Boris Johnson is certainly hoping that is the case. He's doing a lot of work to try and distance the previous Conservative administration. So he's talking about coming into government, which is an interesting rhetoric because, of course, technically they've been in power for 10 years. Another really interesting comment which has come out in the last hour or so is from the DUP leader Arlene Foster. And she has said that she's been famously quiet during the election campaign, but expect a lot of noise out of her Friday morning. And I think what she's insinuating is the Conservatives will not have enough numbers to get quite over the line, but they will be there ready and waiting to prop the government up again to put Boris back into power.
Wait and see. Benjamin, it's fascinating. Great to talk to you, mate. All the best. Enjoy the next few days. I know you will. Benjamin Laker is our friend in the UK. Let's take a quick break and then back with these fellas where we'll keep talking about the issues, but time to put them on the hot seat. Despite their protestations, despite their fears, despite the rumble in their tummies, what do they remember about the past 10 years? What can you remember about the past 10 years? You'll find out next.
Dad, where do babies come from?
Well, It all starts with the copulatory process, mate. This leads into full fertilization, the uterine wall, embryo, then into a fetus, slides down the birth canal, and that's where babies come from. Any questions?
Handle any situation in an Everest sport.
Last Christmas, the soundtrack, featuring the music of George Michael and Wham. Last Christmas, the soundtrack, out now.
A normal person would have booked a flight and wouldn't have tried to drive a piano across the desert.
Start the car!
There's cops!
1 in a million, baby. Upright, Sunday 8:30 on Fox Showcase and watch on demand.
What could be better than some straight talking in the morning?
How good is PM in the AM?
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
Sign up to Paul Murray's brand new podcast, PM in the AM. Hear your morning headlines fast, free, 5 days a week. PM in the AM. Now, back live with Paul Murray.
All right. They've been dreading this moment, but it is upon us now. Senator James Paterson, Liberal Victoria. He thought, hang on, I haven't been on the Paul Show for a while. I expect to talk about substantive issues. No, we're doing a quiz.
I was hoping we'd run out of
Very
time.
naive.
I'm sure there's more topics to discuss.
Oh, there is. But we're going to do this first, right? And Jihad, for the Labor Party in New South Wales, we understand that this is the main game, of course, what is happening in New Zealand, but the latest information that we have, we'll have to wait again for the morning. So I'm not being disrespectful about what's happening here, and neither are our guests, so please don't imagine that. We're just telling you what is happening should you be watching us in an airport or somebody somewhere else and you're just catching the latest news from New Zealand. But here we go. All right, lads, your name is your buzzer. So could we please get a little test? Senator, your name, please?
James.
Your name?
Jihad.
Excellent. All right. How many MPs have been disqualified over dual citizenship?
Jihad.
Yep.
4.
James, it's yours.
7.
15. 8 senators, 7 MPs. How's that for 10 years? All right. Now, I've got no idea who this was, so good luck, lads. Who is the most listened to artist of the 2010s, according to Spotify?
Jihad.
James.
Yep. Oh, I'm going to go James, even though Jihad was first.
Well, it's on the screen. I think it's Drake.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. I was just saying, thank you.
I need to look at the screen.
What? We're new to the quiz business here on Paul Murray Live, all right?
I'm going to put in an appeal. I'm sure I buzzed first.
Yeah, I think you both get partial credit for that. And -1 for super producer Asta. It was a good question, but alas. How long did residents in Hawaii believe that a missile was heading for them after a fake warning sent in 2018? Now, I'll give you a tip here. It is somewhere between half an hour and an hour. How long did they think that a missile was coming despite the fact it was a fake warning?
James.
James, go for it.
50 minutes.
Lower?
45.
Lower. James, back to you.
42.
Lower?
35.
Higher?
39.
Lower?
37.
38. Bugger you both.
Can we just split the points?
Yeah,
James
another partial win for everyone. God,
everyone gets a prize, mate.
This socialists, we rejected this at the federal election. There are winners and losers in Quiet Australia,
Ask us a question.
Winners and losers. What is the most watched television broadcast of the past 10 years? We're going off Australian ratings, we're going off free-to-air. The #1 event everyone watched on telly, it was in 2011, and it was rather regal.
Oh, Jihad.
Yep.
Was it the princess? Who was it? One of the royal weddings? Was it 2011? Was that William and Kate?
Correct. We have a point on the board. Yes. All right. So well done. I don't know how many people watched it, but it was a lot.
Yeah.
And how many commemorative magazines were out there? How we go?
Mugs.
All right.
Just like the PML one, I think, isn't it?
You can take that with you if you want. What year was the first Apple Watch released, Senator?
2013.
Oh, damn it. Higher?
14.
Higher?
Oh.
15.
Yes, James Paterson, everyone gets one win handed to them, partial credits, all the rest of it here. last question to both of you here. What is the event you remember most of the past 10 years, Senator?
For me, it was Brexit Day. I was a lonely Australian politician in supporting Brexit publicly before the vote. I still didn't think it was possible, and when those numbers started coming in, it was like all my Christmases come at once. Yeah, I felt like that in May. I felt like that for Trump, and I felt like that for Brexit as well. Gee, had the most memorable event of the past 10 years for you?
Oh, there's been a lot, but if I think about the one that, like, I just remember when it happened was the Lent shooting. Of
course, yes.
And just also just really personal though. That was my first election campaign. You know, obviously, you know, being an Islamic background person, there was a lot of issue, and it was not long before the actual election itself. But I just remember watching the footage and just, you know, being horrified by what was happening, and then seeing the response. And I think as well as part of a day that we as a nation kind of had to look at things in a really open light. But that, when I think about things that have happened during a decade that really stand out, that I could never figure, I can actually remember everything I was doing on that day, it would be it.
Lads, I appreciate it. Merry Christmas to both of you. All the best for the break. I hope, if nothing else, you get the chance to spend time with the people that you love and do bugger all for a couple of weeks.
That's all we're doing.
It's not bad, is it, Senator? What a dream. Do nothing. Anyway, more strength to both of your arm, and all the best for fighting for freedom in the Senate. God love you, having to share the same room as the Greens. Thank you, lads. That is our show. Thank you very much for watching.